But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, what message does my Lord have for his servant? The commander of the Lord's army replied, take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. This was an Old Testament manifestation of the person of Jesus Christ. Pretty cool. Jesus shows up. And it's interesting here, I thought about this in regards to willing and obedient, and Joshua and how it relates to us. And I thought this, that God is saying to Joshua, listen, if this whole thing's going to work for you, this whole army thing, and taking Jericho, and entering in this land, and really taking the whole land, if this whole thing is going to work for you, you apply it to your life now. If this life, this destiny, if it's going to work for you, you must acknowledge and submit to the one who's in charge. You must acknowledge the lordship of Jesus Christ, and you submit to him. I love what Warren Wiersbe said, a great Bible teacher. He said the first step toward victory is to confess that you are second in command. That's a good one. You're not in charge. You're not in charge of your life. God's in charge of your life. See, I believe here, there's a couple really neat things in this passage. Number one, Joshua's going like, well, what message do you have for me? What are my instructions? You know, how are we going to do this? What's the next thing? What is the message that you have for me? He says, all right, here's the deal. Here's the message. Take off your shoes. This is a holy place. Well, what kind of strategy is that? What kind of thing is that? The first thing I want you to do is to acknowledge, submit, and worship God. You have to understand. It doesn't matter what the strategy is. I'll give you a strategy. Come on, don't worry about that. You acknowledge me. You acknowledge the Lord. Now, this worship, this whole idea of worship. Willingness believes. And there's no doubt, listen, the reverence. Are you kidding? This supernatural figure with a drawn sword that Joshua's like, whoa. And he immediately he falls down. It's like, wow, this is some kind of a supernatural thing going on here. Oh, that's the willingness part. The willingness believes. I mean, he's standing right there. Willingness believes. Obedience worships. Willingness believes. Listen, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of you who believe in God. There are a lot of your friends, a lot of your people who believe in God. And a lot of you here this morning, you believe in God. You say, yes, I believe in God. Yeah, wow, he's awesome. I mean, if he came into this room, and that would be amazing. That would be a supernatural thing. A lot of people are willing. A lot of people believe. But he says, you know what, if you want this good life, if you want this thing where things go well for you and you make progress and you fulfill your destiny and you're fulfilled, there's this another step. It's not just willingness. It's not just this thing that God is really cool. No, it's like you're going to worship. You're going to worship. Not obedience worships God. And we think that worship is for God. He doesn't need that. He's pretty secure in who he is. He doesn't need us telling him, wow, you are awesome. I bless you, O Lord. I worship you and honor you. My soul secure, my promise sure. For your love endures. Thank you, thank you. You are so good and gracious and merciful. He doesn't need to hear that. He really knows it. Who's it for? Who's it for? The worship is for us. It puts him in the place, the proper place in our lives and our minds and our souls and all that. And we say, wow, he is. And I am. Yeah, and he is. And we say, wow. Another thing is this idea of private worship. You know, before anything public goes on. Don't think you can just show up in your lives, you know, out and about with people, and you haven't been in the presence of God for weeks, you know, and you haven't been in your Word, and you haven't worshiped, and you haven't sang one song, and you're just like, wow, I have an opportunity to share my faith with somebody, and you start blasting away, and nothing happens. Listen, there's something to say for private worship before any kind of a public ministry. We really need to understand this. We really need to be in God's presence in order to have an anointing, in order to be effective in leading anything, leading our family, leading our spouses, and leading our at work. Willingness believes, and obedience actually worships. It's a wonderful scene there. It's a cool scene. Well then, we move to chapter 6. It says Jericho was tightly shut up. It was a city of about, let's lay out Jericho here. We sit on a piece of property here. All of our property, with a big field and everything, is about just a little over about 5.5 acres. Jericho was probably only about 7 or 8 acres. Okay, the archaeologists say it's about 7 or 8 acres. So you can imagine, it's just, you know, it's a little bit bigger. You know, you take the school, maybe playground out there, a couple acres. And so that's what we're looking at. And you got the surrounding foothills, you know, with all the people around. And then Jericho had these walls that were between 20 and 30 feet high, probably. And the bottom 11 feet of the wall were kind of plasterish, slick stuff that came out at an angle like this, and they kind of it was a curved thing. So it was just basically impenetrable because they couldn't do the battering ram because it came out so far. So they couldn't actually do the battering ram. They couldn't climb up it, and they couldn't set it on fire. So it was impenetrable. I mean, Jericho was the place, and so Joshua, of course, is, you know what, and the people are like, wow, this is going to be a tough one. So as Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites, they heard all that God had done. They knew they crossed this Jordan River, that dried up the river. And so all the people who lived out in the surrounding, who farmed and everything, they'd come inside the walls and shut up the walls. And the Lord said to Joshua, verse 2, see, I've delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king, its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of horns, okay, the shofars, those horns, in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have all the people give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse, and the people will go up, every man straight in. So Joshua called the priests, and he said to them, okay, you guys, here's the plan. You're going to take the Ark of the Covenant, which is the presence of God. There's going to be 7 priests that are going to carry the trumpets in front of them. And he ordered the people, advance, march around the city with the armed guard going ahead of the Ark of the Lord. Interesting kind of a little scenario. You've got an armed guard, you got these 7 priests blowing these shofars, and you got some guys carrying the Ark of the Covenant. Verse 8, when Joshua spoke to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets.